Hey, Liron here. Today you're going to learn why perhaps your paintings lack a sense of realism, that feeling of three-dimensionality, feeling of things looking like they pop out of the paper and just look real overall, okay? I mixed quite a bit of very light paint here. I'm going to spray some water on my paper here, just in some select spots where I might want some flow around the face. I'm going to get started. I pre-wet, again, some areas of the paper, because what I'm gonna need next is a bit of gentle control of the paint here, okay? I'm gonna travel around the wet areas and begin to indicate where I see the value going essentially from just white or very light to dark. Now, hopefully this format will be interesting for people to watch, because the end result should be better, quite honestly, because I'm gonna really paint almost as if I'm painting just for myself, if that makes sense. Now, with time and experience, you'll kind of learn how to do these things. It's not really an obvious technical thing, but rather more of a perception. A lot of what painting is about is perception. It's what you perceive in the scene, what interests you about the scene, and what from that you personally can convey to the viewer. Now, I can just kind of start working on just extending and expanding this very wet wash to the borders outside of the face and even the hair. So right now we have a lot of paper white, and that prevents us from seeing the highlights on the face properly. But as soon as we start adding some context to it, the highlights will look like a highlight. And the wash is so wet right now that even if we get some uneven shapes within it, it's not going to matter because we're going to cover most of it, not all of it, but most of it with more paint later on. So what this allows us is to start perceiving the contrast and values, okay? And again, you could at this stage start taking this further. I just don't really see a need to. We'll let this dry and then we'll continue from there. But this is what we have. So we're taking it up a notch now, and I'm gonna start conveying some more serious of values and details. And the mistake most beginners make is they don't make a clear enough separation between light and shadow. I'm gonna start by just painting in, some of the eyebrows and kind of seeing where that takes us. Work a little more carefully here. And just start establishing some of these, the edge of the eyebrow. We already have the gradual transition from the previous wash, so we're pretty good there. And once I have something to work with, you can start just bringing in more paint and seeing where that gets you. So to me, because we have hair here, we can pretty much end the wash here. No one will notice. And I'm just gonna blend this area out. I think I'll try and begin to kind of see if I can push it to be a little darker. So notice how before I'm expanding the wash, before I'm starting to continue it, I want to make sure that what I already have is solid. That's another thing that, especially again, if you're kind of passionate like I am and you really want to, move the paint and all of that, you might end up moving too fast, and it will just kind of lose the accuracy of the small narrow spots you are working on. And let's see if I can start expanding a bit. Still quite careful. I'll use another brush to kind of soften out the edges. we'll start designing the bottom of the nose here. There's a very clear plane change where this area does get darker. Notice how this wash is so different from the previous one, where we prioritize motion and moving across the paper. Here we're kind of digging in, trying to make the most out of the very small section we're working on. And you'll experience this in different parts of the painting process, in any painting process really. This can kind of blend down here, wrap around this wing of the nostril, if you will. Kind of move down here. And I'm gonna start establishing this edge here. Like so. Ignoring for now the eye, we don't need that. But this is where you really want to make a clear distinction between light and dark. And it feels like everything almost needs to be connected in a way. It's not the truth. Not everything needs to be connected, just so you know. In case you were wondering. But what does need to be connected needs to be connected. I don't overthink it that much. But look at how I'm designing my edges by pre-wetting and then revisiting. By the way, the weather is really strange today, so sorry if just now everything kind of darkened and went yellow. It's literally the light outside is shifting. It's a bit of a strange transitional time of year. And I'm gonna do something interesting here. So I'm gonna extend this a bit. I'm gonna blend this end that reaches the hair, but what's really important for me is to get the distinction on the chin. So the chin goes from here and it goes all the way to here. And that I want to convey. So let's explore the eye. So there's a really nice shadow inside it that I'm going to start establishing. For very small and subtle highlights, I may resort to using something like a white gel pen or opaque paint, because there are some of those here. But for now, I'm just going to skip some of the highlights if I can. Now, I'm not a master of portraits, I would say, but I do have some portraits that are masterful, if that makes sense. You know, you get lucky breaks here and there. So I can sometimes demonstrate the more masterful stuff, and sometimes I can't. You know, that's inconsistency with challenging subject matter that happens. You know, they can be way more consistent with cityscapes and cars and whatnot. Portraits are a different beast, and there's a lot of ways you can tackle them too. You know, you can be more expressive, you can do a bunch of stuff, but I do like to have at least some elements of realism in my portraits. So I'm definitely more biased towards that. I'm going to darken this kind of shadow under the eye. And check it out. So this is going to go dark. This is going to go dark. And really key part here is I want to express these beautiful cast shadows of the eyelashes. You don't want to miss that. Look at this, so beautiful. You know, I don't know how long this video ends up being. Might be way longer than usual. Might be kind of an average length. I have decided with my YouTube stuff to kind of follow my gut for a while and not really care about the analytics as much. I'm gonna do my best to provide you with the best lessons I can, and hopefully that will make whatever needs happening will make it happen. Because I've obsessed over analytics for a long time, trying to figure out why some videos are really successful, others not so much, and at the end of the day, you never know. A lot of it is guesswork. You can do some things to increase the odds, but ultimately, and I'm saying this after making 1,500 videos plus, probably a lot more by now. So, what you end up learning is there really isn't that many secrets. There is knowledge. There's the things you understand visually. And then there is exploring. Exploring is at the heart of success with whatever subject matter you're painting. If you're willing to explore it far and wide enough, like I'm doing, by the way, with sunsets right now. If you want to see more of that, you really want to join the Watercolor Breakthrough Club, by the way. It's my exclusive Watercolor Club. You get access to weekly painting demos live, so you get to talk to me and talk to the community and really take your watercolors to the next level. But what I'm currently doing with there and the Sunsets Challenge, 100 Sunsets, like I did with the cars, that's me kind of taking it to the next level, by smart repetition. Repetition alone does not really solve anything in my humble experience. It's not about repetition, it's about depth. If you can deeply explore something, you're way more likely to figure it out. So you see what I'm doing right now? Is it best practices? Is it combining washes? Is it? No, it's not. I'm just really focused and I'm doing my best to explore whatever it is I'm painting. So let's get this nostril. This is a bit of an easier section here. Just small, contained, with a bit of a backlight there. At the end of the day, honestly, it's just you and your brush. And if you sit down and explore, or stand up and explore, or plein air, you will reach new heights and you will build up your own, I think, your own ways of doing things that are far more effective for you than what others are doing. Because what others are doing is going to fit them, but what you're doing has to fit you. But in any case, so yeah, I would highly, highly recommend. Over the past decade or so, I would say that helping others and creating these videos has been huge in my personal growth as a painter, because I've seen just about any mistake under the sun, and so I'm so used to seeing it not dark enough, not light enough, just not developing a painting enough. Honestly, a lot of it comes down to just developing it enough so that it reaches the levels that you find satisfying. And sometimes people just quit before they're done. And that's pretty much it, So teaching others and supporting others, and hopefully I did manage to do that over the years here and on other places, is really big for growth. So if you're after that, you don't have to go at it alone. And a lot of painters talk about this, how lonely painting can be. And I'm naturally a lone wolf in many ways, but it can be very, look at this. This is a white of the eye. It's not white. We're covering it. But in many ways, even if you're a lonely wolf, I think you'd get quite a bit from having this type of community, people have been, selling their paintings. People are submitting to all sorts of exhibitions, and we'll build our success stories. They're already starting to build, really. Not that I take credit for every success, of course. It's all down to the member and how they're doing things, but in their effort. Not effort in terms, my thoughts on effort. I don't think that any of this is really hard work. So, it's pretty amazing to see. And if you want to be a part of it, definitely would recommend you join. I am not going to be able to get to accept new members forever, because I do want to keep this kind of a small and controlled group, very high quality, and I am really handpicking the people in a way so that I know it's good vibes, you know, as the kids say, because I want the community to, like, I'm an old man, I'm talking funny, because I really want the community to be super supportive, you know. And so, if you're looking for that, would love to have you there. There's actually 2 tiers to the club. So if you want just the community and all of those benefits and the live streams, join the link in the description box below. But do feel free to let me know if you want to get ongoing feedback on your paintings. I offer a premium tier, which basically gives you the ability to send me a painting every month for feedback. So if you're more interested in that kind of a thing and you really want to think of it like the growth, kind of the growth plan, if you will. If you are after that and you're really determined, you know, to sell your paintings, to make a living as an artist, to be accepted to different shows and exhibitions, you know, that's what you might want to consider. I'll definitely say that I'm giving feedback to everyone in the community itself. But if you want more, just email me. Just let me know. It's another option. But here I kind of, the link below is going to be for the normal plan, for the pro plan, what I call. Become a member, share your paintings with others, get access to the live streams, which is huge, and become a part of the community, you know. For the premium tier, it's super limited, so it's definitely not gonna be available at some point, because, you know, I'm giving you personal feedback on your paintings every month. There's only so much, you know, so many people I can give feedback to. My time is super limited as is. So if you're interested in that, I would definitely jump on that if you can. But in any case, you see, just slow build up. Not everything happens fast, and that is fine. We're building things up here, and that's a big part of what I notice makes a lot of beginners and aspiring painters just not get the results they want. They just quit. They just quit before they got there. And you know, you can push your painting so much. There's a lot. I'm not even close to finishing this one, you know. There's the hair, in fact, let's tackle the hair now. I think this is a good opportunity. We can still build it up from light to dark, don't get me wrong. But this is where we kind of have to, you know, speed things up a little. So dark background, but you'll notice not as dark as some spots of the hair. So let's see. I'm gonna do this. I'm not gonna be able to negatively paint around individual hair strands for sure. So I'm not even trying to do that. What I'm trying to do is get a holistic frame for the entire painting. Holistic meaning it flows, it looks good, it feels good. It traps the highlights, something I talked about on some of the sunsets videos. Again, you really should join the club just for the demos, because I talk about all of these things there a lot. So, you know, just trapping the light. As soon as you start adding the darks around, you also trap the highlights and give them a meaning, right? I talked about this here on YouTube too. You want to give meaning to the lights with the darks. Once again, I'll say in real life, I'm not a believer of you need the dark in order to have the light. You need to suffer in order to be happy. I'm not a fan of that mindset. I always have to stick that in. But when it comes to painting, it really is. A lot of it is down to contrast, you know. I'm going to switch over to this brush. It's going to give me a bit more versatility and control. And, you know, while this is wet, this, I don't want to have a hard edge there. This is so to the side of the painting. So we really want to establish that. I'm using a mix of brushes. These in particular are the Michael Soloviev ones, perfect brushes for wet and wet control and all sorts of interesting details if you want to have those. And yeah, let's kind of, I'll take a painterly approach. This is kind of dark inside the kind of folds and creases of the hair. This entire thing, you know, we have time pretty much, so I can just grab all of this thick paint and just establish as dark of a hair as I am interested in, quite frankly. So we'll do that, I think. Again, I'm not a missile boo. Honestly, I have no idea how they paint some of what they paint. But it's gonna be good enough, you know. It's gonna be good enough for sure. There's a dark patch here. These I kind of like leaving as highlights, so we're not going to mess around with them too much. There is a bit of a shadowy area right here in the middle, so I'm going to try and capture that with some motion of the hair. And in the middle we do go lighter, so there's the kind of, I don't know what you call that in English. It's kind of a road between the two different sides of the hair. And I'm going to continue moving this wash here. Like so. The hair, you'll notice it's quite light on the edges, right? It's not too glowy, not too, you know, but then as we get to the frame here, it does go a little, it feels like it goes a little darker. Let's see if we can kind of combine those two visual ideas together. Just start establishing something here. This goes all the way to the forehead, like so. And you see that's kind of a nice little connection there. And then I'm gonna make sure to leave a bit of a more highlighty area. You see these little brush marks? They really help to convey that this is hair. It's the kind of thing you do see someone like Miss Olbu do. And you know, if I'm lucky, I'll get some of these kinds of details in. For the most part, I'm not yet consistent with this kind of a thing. And then we'll work around the face here, not losing what we've already successfully built. It's a big part of, you know, overwork at the end of the day is just kind of, you had something great, and just because of insecurity or because of not enough experience and perception, you just kind of paint over it, you know, and it disappears, and it no longer has this beautiful, fresh look to it, you know. So now I'm really locked in. I'm gonna go all the way, taking a bit of a, I'd say a bit of a looser approach, but it's pretty much out of necessity because I don't have the luxury to slow down right now. So, you know, sometimes you get into that trap, and that's fine. The trap of I need to push this towards completion. And I would say probably let's get kind of, okay, a bit of this hair patch, and then it splits into two different sides, but then it goes dark, completely dark here. And that's something I do want to combine with the dark we put earlier and kind of blot out this entire area right here. So we get this kind of a wild, almost wild area. If you play Pokemon games, wild area around the face, and you can still add to it and make it look a little more hair-like if you do these kinds of swipes of the brush. So down here it's totally a shadow, and here I kind of flipped the background foreground values. I'm fine with that actually. This bugs me a bit, so let me just kind of flatten this area. There we go. This totally could kind of be dark. I'm fine with that. Some areas you might end up wanting to go a little darker with on the face. Some of these, I mean, I knew I'm gonna go a little darker here, as I mentioned. But some of these are new. You're like, oh, okay. I didn't figure out I'm gonna need to do that later on, you know. And now you know. So yeah, all of these groups of hair are kind of going down here alongside this area. And yes. This looks good. So the main thing that I'm seeing right now is how light this is. This isn't a lack of my understanding. This is just not being able in the heat of the moment to push this to be dark enough. So look, what we're aiming for here is to unite the different areas while maintaining most of the shape of this wash and darkening it wherever necessary. So take a look at what I'm doing here. I'm gonna cover, I think this entire thing can be covered. And now we have to take care of these little edges right here. So I'm gonna pre-wet like so. And I'm gonna cover with paint. And now that we know where we paint, we can focus on how dark we paint. So you see, I can just focus on pushing the value. And probably I want to push this area as well. Just get it to be dark enough, unified enough, even enough. I know we have some kind of brush marks there. They're going to disappear in a moment. I believe they're going to disappear. If not, it's not the end of the world, but I really want them to disappear, if I'm being honest. So let's see. We'll give this some time. And you can pretty much just extend if you want to make sure it doesn't dry weird. And I would say while this is still wet, let's make the most out of it and start establishing the extra dark areas. Like here within the mouth. And I'm going to shut up for a moment because I need to focus. I become way too talkative when I'm excited. And when there's educational value. And my portraits, make no mistake, have come a long, 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 long way. But I've never really been focused on portraits, so my growth has still been limited, right? The thing you do work on, of course, you will experience the most growth at. And I barely work on portraits. So, you know, maybe 100 portraits challenges in the making too. Who knows? These shadows are important, so let me try and kind of get them to look good. Okay, so I took a break and now I have some more perspective into this one. And I have some of the main things I would love to work on. So too many lights, meaning all of this, you know, I started with a very thin first wash, ended up darkening the darks more than I planned. So now we have to match that with the lights to basically just remove and eliminate some of them. Then we have the background and the hair, which compositionally, I like some spots, I don't like others, so we'll have to figure out how to play around with that. And finishing details and kind of finesse. So I'm going to start by eliminating some lights. And I think the easiest way to do this would be to just kind of pre-wet an area. And understanding that the fact that it's pre-wet means we'll have to use thicker paint to actually have it show. I kind of like there's a bit of a highlight here above the eyebrow. I want to capture that. This goes a little stronger. This goes a little stronger. There's shadows under the hairs here. And what we have to ensure is that this paint basically lasts, that it doesn't dry and then disappear. So you see it starts to shape up some of the shapes a little better. I actually think this kind of connects here. And then we have a bit of that here. And because we have some thick, dry paint here on the palette, we have something to play around with to get this impression. Now, as long as you don't go too far, it will still look good. But if you go too far on the lights, it can start looking dirty. Okay, so if your paintings look dirty, mine might end up looking dirty. If they look dirty, it's because you went too far on the lights. The lights don't need to be as strong as maybe you portray them. Now, as for this section, we're going to do the exact same thing. So especially for the areas here around, that's where I would love to add some, see this very much needed context just to take us from the darks to the lights or the lights to the darks. You see how it just brings some organization to it. And here, especially next to the chin, is where we can kind of pre-wet and then come back with some paint just to really show that this side of the face does also have some shadows and they're very gentle, but you see how it starts to build up. Even here, I would say there's a bit of shadows on this side of the chin, which we can then smoothen out. But I would say you want to make sure this doesn't fade too much. So you want to make sure maybe you go over it again once or twice if necessary. I'll also add some water here and start a very soft transition towards this area right here, that I will kind of meet with the other area and actually come back and kind of soften up. Something like that. So now we're closing in the gaps between the lights and the darks. I would probably do a similar thing here and here. Something like that. And so now it should make a little more sense. And now that we got that out of the way, we can probably move to some other stuff. So too many lights is pretty much okay now. It's not perfect, but it's better. We can revisit that later on. Now, what I would probably do is start working on the background. Now, this dark area that I wanted to contrast with the hair, it looks good, but it's kind of just here. There's no other darks. So what I'm gonna do is, instead of having this dark here with no real purpose, I'm gonna gradually push from light to dark. That's what we're gonna do. So we're gonna start with some clean water right around here, I would say. And then as we head down towards this dark that I already put in, I'm gonna start darkening. I'm gonna need to add a bit more just to have it be gradual enough. And then notice what's gonna happen as we move down here. I'm gonna maintain the similar, at least, level of darkness, and probably have that be this dark too. So something like that. Now this is still, it's very wet, so it'll start lighting up the more dry. So we need to kind of account for that and come back wet and wet with some yet thicker paint. Connect, I would say, go super dark under this group of hair. So we'll start shaping it up, right? It's not just this, it's the entire background we're working on. So let's start shaping up the darks here. I'd say it goes down like this. And we have the hair itself. Notice how it goes kind of curly and back like so. And then this goes dark. And I would say this has to be connected down here to this entire area. And now that this entire area is wet, we can start maybe introducing some darker darks, trying to maintain some kind of a smooth feel to it. Once it dries, it'll go a little smoother. I would argue probably this could go a little darker. And notice one more key thing. So what I would do is probably add a bit of water here in the center. And as we move out to the edges, I'll darken. Because this group of hair, right, this is one kind of group of hairs. It needs to be dark towards the edges. That's what you want here. Okay, kind of gone over the chin a bit. That's fine. We'll get rid of that. And, right, you want to have it kind of gradual. And I would venture even further and make a few of these kind of connecting marks, just to show these are a couple of groups of hair. And there are also kind of individual strands within them, right? So it starts to gain that hairy look, for lack of a better word. Now, there is the actual edge of the face. So around here, even though it looks pretty, I would like to start showing that this is under another group of hairs. So we'll do this, just one brush swipe or brush mark, and go ahead and make it narrower here. Something like that. See, it starts to gain that feeling of hair. And I would say let's merge and make these darks here kind of similar in value, because they are quite strong, especially here in the middle. Okay, these are really strong. And you notice how all of these things I'm doing are pushing this painting to a more finalized look. Again, this is where beginners get it wrong. They simply give up too early. They don't like what they have on paper, and they're really not sure, and that's a big part of it. You're not sure how to fix stuff, right? They don't know how, so what are you going to do other than quit, you know? Now, there are a lot of things you can do other than quit. You can take a break. That works really well. You can consult others. That's a service I provide, by the way. You can get feedback on your paintings. Very simple and straightforward. You send me 3 paintings and I give you feedback. You can pay on that. Or if you want to get a better deal, join the Watercolor Breakthrough Club. There you can get the premium tier that I mentioned earlier. You can get some more detailed feedback on your paintings, and it's more of an ongoing relationship, right? Because we do it every month. I get to learn and know your paintings better so that I can provide more quality feedback. And, you know, people are seeing great results. The before and afters, they look good. They look really, really good. So we've just had another kind of batch of feedback, and members posted, a lot of the members, actually, I was happy to see, a lot of the members posted their, look at this, we're gonna add some nice subtle eyelashes here. We're gonna cast this kind of diagonal shadow. I don't even know if I see that thing here, but it just looks so good. I can't pass on the opportunity to do that. So we had a wave of members post their paintings after implementing my feedback, and the results are really good. So I'm very proud of them. Very good results. People are making progress. And we have all levels, by the way, beginners, more advanced, kind of in between, very greenhorn beginners. We have everything. So, you know, if you're kind of a beginner and you're not sure, is this for me? Is this not? It's for you. That's the thing. It's for you. It's for anyone who wants to enjoy painting and finally get the results they're truly after. That's what I would say. You know, I've been lying to myself in the past that I kind of like my results, and you know what? I didn't at times. And it took me a while to discover that, right? So if you feel like you're kind of BSing yourself, you know, that's something I often mention. If you kind of BSing yourself, you know, you can stop and get actual feedback on your work, and you will grow significantly by doing that. It actually works. You know, that's how, funny enough, that's how artists across the centuries have been improving, by doing mentorships and by learning from those who have come before them. Not to say that, you know, I'm like the one authority on the watercolor painting, not at all, right? I learned from many teachers too. That's how I got here. So, you know, just shave some years off the learning curve. Why do you need to struggle? No need to. By the way, if you are looking for a bit more in-depth tutorials and actually see the processes a little more in detail, that's exactly what we're doing in the club. Something more like this video, right? I did cut out a couple of moments here probably, but generally speaking, this is how we do it there. You get to watch me paint more live. And it's for more, I would say, complex pieces that will be a little harder to fully convey in a YouTube video, right? Now, this is an interesting moment where I would probably like to do one more wash, starting from here, covering all of this area up. Now, the reason I want to do this is because I want to further equalize this wash, make it smoother, and it will do that. And then we can add the finishing touches. You'll see it's going to look fantastic. So I will probably pre-wet this area, and I do want to kind of pre-wet this area just lightly. And this paint feels very staining, which is why it won't really, which is quite nice. It won't be lifted by all these little pre-wetting of sections that I'm doing. So that's a really useful thing. Oh, and of course I wanna just pre-wet this starting area, because from there I want to move quite gradually. So we're gonna cover. Probably, by the way, we're going to cover this area that I haven't so far, and keep it simple. And we're going to use the pre-wetting I put there earlier. And most importantly, we're going to just complete this shape. Now, once it dries, you'll start seeing how much more smooth of a result you get, okay? Because every wash that we add like this, you have to be careful not to go too dark, but generally speaking, every wash like this that you add makes this smoother of a wash. Now, I do want to see the nose. That's part of the finishing touches. This area of the nose is darker. You really want to convey that. So I'd go over this area here very carefully. You have no idea how big of a deal just painting carefully and with focus is. People really underestimate it. They think they're painting, you know, perfectly in terms of how they're painting, not what they're painting and what they're doing, but how they're painting. You can paint with so much more focus, so much more dedication, and it will show in your results. It's crazy to me how few people actually use it. You know, when you paint, go slow. Really look at what's going on paper. Does it match your vision? Does it look right? You know, all of these little kind of, see, there's still a bit of wetness here that I could use. All of these little careful touches. You know, I have this video, how to paint a masterpiece today. It's really useful in my opinion. You just, and I'm gonna darken this entire edge, see, because this part of the face is a little more hidden. You know, people underestimate the value of pure just dedication to what they're doing. And we have so many distractions today to begin with, you know, content online and just busy life, you know, and worries and everything. And if you're just able for a short while to let go of some of that, you'd be amazed at how much better your results get, you know. And I think if you're painting, you kind of deserve it, right? You kind of deserve to paint worry-free. At the very least, you know, the times you do spend painting, make those times you give the gift of focus to yourself, the gift of not having your mind run around like a chicken, you know, with its head cut off. Just let it do the thing it's meant to do, which is being still. Just being still will take you such a long way forward, honestly. So look, I'm not recognizing too many things I'd like to work on other than finishing touches right now. So I think we'll start moving into those. It's very small, you know, stuff. Like I might add, I kind of want to darken the background a bit more. If you don't mind, I want to lock in the highlights a bit more. So I'm going to just apply, you can, by the way, do this and it will work a little easier. Usually the part that's a bit more complex, you want to start with that and move towards the more open part. The only real disadvantage is we have this beautiful smooth transition here. So let's see if I can kind of pre-wet and get away with not ruining that. So I'm going to do this, and now I'm ready to roll. So we're going to continue from this section, and we're going to see. We're going to do this, and starting from here, we haven't lost our beautiful edge. There we go. Let's connect these two parts. With this paint, again, you kind of have to watch the direction of your brush marks in a way. But look, I'm going to leave this to dry like this for a couple of moments, just so that I don't have to flip it around. And we'll see what happens. We'll rotate it back. So I kind of like where this is going, and we can start maybe expressing more of the hairs. And then there's a bit of a fix I want to make for the nose. So we'll see how that goes. A bit of a, not high risk, but kind of a risky move. But you know, that's usually how I do these things. I like taking some risks with my painting. So I kind of cleaned up the brush from paint. Just to have a bit more of a drier brush feel. And I'm going to establish some hair here. And probably gonna do this here. And I think starting from this point, we definitely can go darker on the hair. And you know, there's no real, you don't have to do this. But if you want your values to kind of be loyal to the reference, the hair does go darker than the face. And it does go darker starting from this spot. So And if I can get it in just this one last go, I won't really have to do much later on. I think I'll kind of keep it as is, even if it's not perfect after this one. Close off this edge. So here's the bit of a risky move I want to make. I don't know, I would love to make this mid value a little stronger. It might backfire on me, but I'll give it a try. So, very carefully, I'll pre-wet this area once again. And we'll just revisit it with some paint. Let's see what happens. Maybe I shouldn't have pre-wet it. I kind of feel like this needs to be a little stronger to make an actual impact. And then I have to, for this one, I have to loosen it up a bit. So let's see. And then I kind of would like to loosen that side up. Let's see if I can do it. Sometimes it doesn't work. I have this blending brush. It's a bit of a hit or miss depending on the pigment you're using. But I would love to see if I can maybe get some loose edges around here. Okay, so this time it is working, which is great for us. See, it kind of blends out this edge. Like so, and definitely here I would like to blend it out a bit more. Bit of a hack for you if you're looking for a good way to blend. Yeah, so now I think the nose reads a little better. To be honest, my camera also kind of burns out the major light sources, so it's fine. Now, I would love to... There was something... Yeah, I noticed this should be darker. And you know, I might not even end or completely finish this painting with this go. I might spend some more time on it later in private. I might, I'm not sure, we'll see. But I would love to add some interesting highlights. So, we're gonna grab our thin rigger brush. I will get our, this is a gouache paint actually. You could use watercolor too, but this one I know is quite opaque. Now you can do this multitude of ways. You can lift. Let's see if lifting works. Sometimes it doesn't. So if I want, say, a bit of a light hair, yeah, I kind of have to darken some spots here. So let's start like this. I'm gonna go here wet, bring in some water, and I have to darken this lower section a bit. And upper section too. That's better. Okay, that's a lot better. Now let's see if we can get away with the lifting. I'm not sure it's gonna work, but we'll try. So you want just a thin, let's say there's a hair here, right? See this hair? Let's lift that inside the shadow. Let's see if that works. A much faster way would simply be to use opaque paint, right? But if you want to be a bit of a watercolor purist, right, you can try it out this way with very thin kind of, and you can use a tissue to lift back. If it's not fast enough, I'll definitely switch. Yeah, I don't like this. It's a bit messy. I mean, it does work. Hopefully you can see it did lift. The only real advantage of doing it this way is that kind of purity that I was referring to. So you don't have anything that's not watercolor tainting, quote unquote, your paper. There is some magic to that, I'm not gonna lie, that somehow appeals to me, which is why I love sometimes to paint around highlights rather than add them later on. But the thing is, I don't know, I'm just not probably patient enough to do it this way. So we'll do a bit just to show you, but then I'll probably break away, and actually I need real paper towel tissue, so let's grab this bit here. And then I'll probably just do it, you know, with some opaque paint. It's just so much faster. Oh, by the way, that's a huge oversight. This is like much darker. I don't know how I messed these areas up. This is much darker around the edges. And probably here too. There we go. Yeah, so in any case, you got the picture. Let's do this with some opaque paint, because then I can just work more freely. And I am gonna mix it a bit on the palette just to have like something to work with. So check it out. So the one I did get, I'm not gonna get again. But this is gonna be very slow and tedious, so again, I might kind of cut out some of these parts. By the way, another advantage to just lifting or getting the highlights right from the beginning is you're working with colors that are in harmony. This white is not going to be in harmony with my black, believe it or not. It might end up, if you have too many colors, it might destroy the color harmony. Now, we're not really going to run into this issue here because we have barely, a couple of colors to begin with. But even white is biased towards something. And this bias can hurt your color harmony. So just good to be aware of that. Now, when it comes to doing hairs like this, it really helps to think about the hair in groups. So I'm not going to paint each and every hair, but I am going to paint the focus of every group. So the focus of this group is the thin highlight in the middle, right? There's a hair, it goes dark, then it goes light and back to dark. And what we're trying to do is capture that for a few of the hairs in a way that kind of feels natural. And once we get that for a couple of hairs, we pretty much can move forward with another group of hairs. Okay, you don't want to overdo this. You want to keep it simple. Another advantage of doing it with opaque paint is you get to travel a bit more freely across the paper. You see, it does look like hair, which is good. So I'm gonna kind of dip into doing a lot of these, and I'm gonna cut it out if it ends up being too boring, right? See these little eyebrows here? Not eyebrows, sorry, eyelashes here. Some of them catch the light in quite an interesting way, so I wanted to convey that too. Some of these areas are very interesting. So you want to maybe do a touch or two of these there as well, just to feed some more interest into it. There's a bit of a highlight here, all these small, this is just decoration, it's not the main thing, right? You don't want to overdo it. Another trick that will help is kind of to have some overlap. So the way I'm usually doing it is one, then one lower, then one lower, then one lower. See, and that makes it look a little more natural, because hair usually, it has this kind of steps to it, right? It's hard to explain, but you know what I mean. If you have long hair, you know what I mean. If you have ever really devoted some effort to your hair, you know what I mean. So it kind of starts high and then goes lower. It's kind of a step system. This is probably an earring, so I'll do this and kind of blend it into the dark. Something like this. Just a touch, you don't need much more than that. There's a bunch of it here. I don't necessarily see the value in showing all of it, so I'll just, again, do a couple more touches. See, once again, go high, low to the left, lower to the left, lower to the left. Kind of a nice little, looks more natural this way. I definitely like this edge here to be a little stronger. But, we're pretty much done here, aside from a few. These angles are beautiful, because it's like the hair goes up and down, but you're only hinting. You're only showing some of that, not everything. Which, to me in art, it's best if you can hint at stuff without really stating it flat out. Sometimes that works a little better, looks a little more natural, not neutral, natural. You could say that natural is also neutral. But yeah, a bit more of a highlight here. To me, this one's done, so let me sign this for now. If I decide to make improvements later down the line, I'll post an update, but I'll probably post it as is to Instagram. Okay, and again, if you want to kind of learn more directly from me, you really want to consider joining the club. We have live painting demos every week, or we choose a topic and really dive deeper into that. And sorry, I was like, am I not mic'd? And the real benefit, I would say, is that you have this sort of an environment that really fosters growth, right? So when you're on your own, you might not be as consistent, and I think you should be self-motivated, by the way. Don't get me wrong, right? You're the only person who can do it for you. But I think when you have this environment that really fosters growth, it gives you more of a direction and more of a consistency. It ends up being very beneficial for growth, which is why I would love to have you there. And I warmly invite you, let's add a shadow for the hair here, which is why I warmly invite you to join the club. It's not that expensive. It's like $49 a month for the basic membership. And then if you want the feedback, the critique, it's $197, but I may have a promo price. And I'm not sure yet. If you're having any trouble, just contact me and I'll gladly help. Link below. If you just want like a watercolor course to learn, just how to let go and paint more loosely, or how to paint realism, check out my watercolor courses. I'm going to put links to those in the description box too, but I will mention, by the way, when you join the club, you get a couple of bonuses. One of them is my courses. So if you still don't own the courses, you can actually join the club and get access to those as a bonus for free. And you get access to the live streams vault. So we've had a lot of live streams up to this point. You get access to the replay of all of them. Okay, that's not a bonus I'll always have. I'll probably remove it at some point. So you might want to consider joining. And I hope this was useful. You see, just to go from that 70% to 100% done, and it's not like it's a perfect painting, but there is a path you take, and if you're able to just continue alongside that path, you will find something. You will find your success, or a modicum of success. And you can do this too, right? You definitely can do this. I see a lot of things of like, yeah, I'll change this up, but for now I'll be happy with it. For now I'll keep it as is. Thank you so much. Thank you to everyone who supports me, by the way, on Patreon. Huge thanks. That's how you get credits at the end of the video. So if that's something you're interested in, check it out. I will see you in the next vid. Take care.